Welcome back to the next installment on the 49 Willys truck project. Today I got to dig that engine out and we're going to put an alternator on it. This truck started out life as a 6 volt and I'm switching it over to 12 volt. So because of that I have to replace a generator with an alternator. Now this is the original generator and it went in something like this here. And so that goes away and I have to come up with all new bracketry to figure out how to get a modern alternator in right there with the right size pulley. So let's get going. So this is the alternator I'm going with. It's a Delco 63 amp. Just the general term for these would be a 10 SI. And it's going to go somewhere right in here. I've got some work to do to get a mounting point down here and also to get some sort of a bracket in place so that I can adjust the tension. I've got a couple brackets here. I've got the original one, and this one normally would mount right here. It actually needs to mount a little further out to accommodate this alternator. So I'm gonna either, well, no matter what I do, I'm gonna have to make some sort of an extension for this bracket. I've also got another bracket on hand that might work, but I've got a little problem with the oil line, so I might, if I have to use this one, I may lop it off and again just run some kind of an extension underneath there. But I've got a little work to do with that. The alternator itself, I know a lot of guys go with a 1-wire just because it's easier to wire up. I don't think that a 3-wire is really any tougher, and I'd rather do it that way. So that will be wired in when I put in my new wiring harness. Now the other thing I need to do is get a different pulley because my Jeep engine here uses a 5/8 pulley and belt, and this is a 3/8 that comes on this one, so I'm going to need to order up a pulley to fit that. All right, I got a parts delivery today. I ordered up a new pulley. This is a 5/8. The diameter is pretty close to the other one. And I think you want to stay with a little bit smaller pulley to get higher RPM out of that alternator. So this will work just fine. And then while I was ordering it, I also ordered up a plug. Let me dig this out. Here's a plug for the wiring. So I figured I'd have that on hand when I'm ready for it. So I will post up some links and part numbers for these parts down in the comment section. So this alternator is going to live in this region right here. Now I need to do some measuring and some calculating to make sure everything lines up where it belongs, that I've got room to do my adjustments. So let's get some information together. That was fun, but I don't think it needs to be that precise. I just need to get things in the neighborhood, and we'll kind of wing it from there with minimal measurements. I think what I'm going to do is start by figuring out where I want this bottom piece anchored and get that set in place. And then this is the bracket I want to use. We'll figure out where that bracket needs to be, how far it needs to come out. So let's start with this bottom piece. All right, the next thing I'm checking is some different points here on the alternator. And I know, for example, the back side of that bottom mount to the center of this pulley, you have to take my word for it, but it's about 3 1/8, so it's pretty close. So here's what that tells me. I need a bracket here that is roughly, I guess this face is 3 1/2 inches from, the center here. That's where I want this thing to start. So I got to figure this bracket out to begin with, and I want something that is pretty stout because it's going to be pulling a little bit. So I think I'm going to make use of this this pipe that comes through here to get a little extra support. All right, I went through my scrap metal and I found this old spindle from a lawnmower deck. And I think what I want to do is run that in through there, down below, and this will be the base that I can build that cradle off of. So I just need to slim this down just a little bit so it fits in there, then cut it to length. Here's a quick look at what I'm doing with these. I've made up 2 brackets, and those will go on either side of that, and this pin will be mounted through the plate, and it's going to look just like that. So we'll do just a little bit of welding and have it ready to go. Okay, I hope this makes sense. I've pounded this in here right now, and it's only held in by friction. And then I put just a brace in here to help me align my other tab. So the other tab's going to go on right here. I'll put a nut on this and just kind of snug it down a little bit. And what I'm trying to do is get this aligned nice and straight so when the alternator goes in there it's not crooked. So what I'm going to start with is just a little tack here, and a tack here to kind of hold things in place. And then we'll test fit that alternator and see how it looks. Okay, so we got our bracket temporarily tacked in. Now let's run this bolt through. All right. That's where this is going to live. And I think we nailed it on the belt alignment. You can kind of see we're landing right where we need to be. So I'll burn this in. I've still got to weld this up completely. Then we'll start working on that top brace. All right, we're good on the bottom now. Got that loaded up. Got a nice pivot. Now the next thing we need to do is get this top bracket in. And this is one we can use to adjust tension. So the top bracket will bolt in right through here. Just like that. And I need to anchor it. It's going to be anchored somewhere in there. And that gives me plenty of adjustment. Nothing seems to interfere here. Now, in order to make this happen, I'm using this hole right here, but it needs to be moved out that far away. So what I'm going to do is build a little standoff here out of some just some round stock that I have, so that I can extend this out, and then I'll just cut what's left over there. I don't need this sticking out beyond here. Now, one of the challenges here is getting this distance right so that this is lined up nice and straight. So in order to get this measured up, I'm going to use, again, just a piece of rod here. We're going to bolt that in. Then I can temporarily just bolt that bracket in where I want it, and then take a measurement, and I can make this standoff. All right, this is the material I'll use for my standoff. I already started on it. I drilled a hole through the end and tapped it. And then I've got this shoulder bolt for the pivot on the bracket. Now it's going to just thread right into this piece. All right, so we've got that threaded in. And then this other end will hit right up at the engine mount plate. So I need to cut this down to be 1 3/4 inches. Then I need to drill and tap the other end so I can run a bolt back through the other side. All right, there's my standoff. Threaded on both ends. Now we're just going to run this bolt through here. Thread it on. We'll snug that down in a minute. Looks like we got plenty of room. We're clearing our oil hose there. Right. That's solid. lot of range there. Well, that's it. I think it's a good fit. All we have to do now is find the right size belt for this thing and we're good to go. Came up with 2 more little things I have to do before I can mount this thing permanently. First of all, let's get a look at this. You see how thin that is? I didn't leave enough room, so I'm actually going to have to weld a little metal back on there and then reshape that. Shouldn't be too big a deal. The other thing I want to do, and this is probably going to fall in the category of overkill, but if you look at this bracket I built, it looks pretty stout, but it's just kind of hanging out here quite a ways. And I feel like just a little extra support down here would give me some peace of mind. So I just made up this little plate. I'm going to weld it down underneath there. That'll just provide just a little extra support in case there's any vibration. All right, I got that brace in there now. I'll sleep better knowing that that's braced up. And we get this bracket. Let's get some background on there. Get this bracket filled in. It's got a lot more meat on it. So now I'll just get a quick coat of paint on this thing and I can get it back together. All right, everything's back together. You can see now that cross brace down there. That gives me a lot of extra support. I'm pretty happy with that. I have my belt. This is a B40, and so this one is a 5/8 belt, and it should fit. I had ordered up a B38 first, and that was way too short, so this should do the job. Let's see. All right, that looks great. That's the right size belt because I've still got plenty of adjustment. That alternator is exactly where the old generator was. It's mounted in strong and sturdy, so I think we're in good shape there. Now, this is all part of a series on bringing an old 49 Willys pickup back to life. And if you want to see more, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And if you'd like to go back and see where we started, there is a whole playlist on this one. I'll put a link to that, as well as a link to all of the parts that I used for this project. So thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next time.